Anima Noira. Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure. I'm honored.
I'm excited to have you on the show. You're busy. You're very busy. You're an artist. Let me look at my list. A model, a psychic, a writer, a YouTube creator. Where do you get the inspiration for all of that?
I guess I'm doing the devil's work, so that's where I get it all from.
Nice, nice. So how long have you been on the left-hand path?
I would say that it's been 15 years, from my early 20s. I was a bit of a devil worshiper as a teenager, but that ended up being just like well, it wasn't such a short episode, but I guess I turned away from it kind of out of fear. And then I, leaned towards the more Wiccan and Druidic, kind of like a more right-hand path, nature-based paganism. But of course, the devil, the horned one, is very much he's everywhere in Druidry and in Wicca. So I turned away from the sinister path as a teenager, but then I was sucked right back into it, like in my early 20s, and I went through different lodges, different incarnations of the Black Cult, different teachers, and then sort of landed where I am. In the more recent years, I became like public about walking the left-hand path and sort of set everything else aside. But this mostly happened actually after my immigration. That was a big life move that had a lot to do with it, because where I'm from, it's hard, if not impossible, to associate with left-hand path practitioners. Just very few of us, and most learn a foreign language and they speak in English. And so yeah, I think it was the left-hand path actually that has drawn me all this way into the Mojave Desert in Nevada. Like, what a place. I would never expect to end up here.
So how long have you been in Las Vegas?
It's my third month.
Third month. Okay. Where were you before that?
I have spent most of my life previously in Prague in Czech Republic. Which is like the westernmost part of Eastern Europe. A very beautiful, very medieval, very magical city with occult heritage. So it's a very beautiful place, and I lived right at the center of all of it. But I've always had this strange link to the United States, where I would be dating Americans. I had 3 American husbands, and I would even like be running into Yankees even back home, even when I didn't want to. Like, I was done with it, I would always run into someone there. And then I moved to the street where the American embassy is, and then I got the office there, which was even closer on the same street. So I was like, well, it's obvious where this is leading. Like, you will cross the ocean at some point in the future, not long from now, and that's where you need to be. And I finally did it last year in spring. Or like in winter already, I decided I just want to leave, because the lockdowns and like the repression of liberty was so bad. Like, I have seen scenes of anti-utopian science fiction in my city, and I just did not see a future there for me. So, I left for the American continent. I went to Mexico first, which is where a lot of people were flocking for freedom at that time. Interesting crowd there. Also a place with rich occult, history and practice heritage. And then I was logically, I guess, drawn to where the action is. And I've been through 4 different states over the past year. So it's been a wild ride.
So how do you like Las Vegas?
I feel connected to this place, even like glued to it. On day 2 that I arrived here, I was like, this place feels like home, which is so strange because it looks nothing like home. I would never think that I would end up in a place that's got palm trees with Christmas lights. It's lit up all year long. Where I'm from, we only get Christmas lights for Christmas and we don't have any palm trees. We get 4 seasons. So yeah, but it just felt right somehow. And I made this decision almost on a whim because, when my last marriage fell apart, that was in Oregon, I kind of had nothing to hold me in Oregon. All those ties pretty much died out because everybody took my husband's side and they just banished me out. So, I've been staying at friends' couches and exes and just trying to get back on my feet. And when I felt strong enough, I was like, okay, so you decided to stay in this country, you're going to apply for citizenship. So where are you going to go since you have no relatives here, no real ties? So just pick a place and roll the dice. And Las Vegas was actually the only place that I've sort of known because it was introduced to me, like I was sold on it 3 years ago. I visited. Yeah, I mean, it's all part of Satan's dark plan.
Are you Satanist, Luciferian? How would you
I would
self-describe?
I would consider myself Luciferian, even though that's not a label that I use very much. I call myself a devil worshipper. I say that I walk the crooked path of the Sabbath. I call myself a witch, but my heart speaks of the left-hand path or the Black Lodge, as in I consider myself a black magician most of all.
Is there a very rich left-hand path community in Las Vegas?
I have actually not met anybody here in person. All of my associations are online. So I know some people from neighboring states.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am not aware actually of a community here. I run into some individuals and all of them have claimed like they don't really know anyone. There is a gothic scene, there is a fetish scene that's even bigger. And then there's like generic witches like Wiccans.
Right.
So some metaphysical stores, but and I do think that the left-hand path is basically solitary by nature. Like you will make alliances and you will find people, but we are so spread out all over the place that it would be, by the grace of higher power if you were to form an actual physical community. And sometimes these meetings are so strange because I have met two powerful Satanists, demonologists in my home country, but I met them after emigrating. Like we started corresponding. So we never met in person. So
Wow.
that's so weird. Like, we actually lived in the same neighborhood.
Wow.
So yeah, that's my former YouTube co-host. He takes pictures still in the same neighborhood that I left over a year ago. So I'm thinking, well, this must have been the will of higher power. I guess we would have gotten involved romantically as well if I was there. Maybe that was not meant to be because I can't go back now, even to visit until my visa is processed. Takes 2 years, 3 years, so I'm stuck here. So, I can fall in love all I want with men from other countries, but I'll never be able to see them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe it'll work out in the future for you. What do you think about um, Satanism and Luciferianism and things like that online that you see? What are your thoughts on that?
I have heard people say, and this is kind of outrageous, but I also think it's very prophetic that Lucifer created the internet so that the black magicians could find each other.
Oh, I've never heard that, but that's pretty good.
I think there is something to it, because literally, how would we even find each other? And I think we have an amazing historic opportunity to communicate openly that was even not possible like 5-10 years ago. People would not be sharing what they are sharing now, and like pretty much openly. I mean, a lot of us have our faces out there, real names, or like, we are identifiable, so there is no fear of persecution or other repercussions, and this was just not possible.
Yeah,
Even
I
when I
agree.
was younger, when I was hanging out with the weekend crowd, it was like people in their 50s, 60s, old schoolers who have been on that path for decades. Whenever we had like a conference, a convention, it would be like in some rented out cottage in the woods. The signs leading to the place would be giving some kind of code word, not like an open banner like this is the witches conference. And we're
Right.
talking about early 2000s Germany, like we're not talking about like some primitive place in the 1950s. Like this was modern times in a very secular European country, and still we were not able to be open about what are we going to do there and who are we going to meet there. And you could actually like get banned from events if anybody found out that you took a picture of yourself with the altar gear. Like that's something that I got in trouble with back then. I took a picture of myself with this ritual horn just because I wanted, some memorabilia from the event.
Right.
Because it was a pilgrimage, we paid money for it. It was a big adventure to drive 8 hours. And the old witches, they got angry, oh my God, like they got angry. Whenever pictures were shared, it was always behind like a password protected wall. And look at 2022, who even cares about like taking pictures of everything are everywhere on Instagram, Facebook. you know People are recording their rituals. There is like the witches of Instagram, beautiful visuals, a lot of witchcraft brands totally out there in the open. It's so much that even journalists are writing about it, or like witch talk, on TikTok. That's like, so this is even the later phase of, I would say, like the liberation of being out there in the open. Um, and that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From that old school time when everything was very secretive, because there was always fear of reprisal. Someone in established religion would follow you home and burn your house down,
Oh
or
my God.
oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I can relate to some of that, but you're absolutely right. The internet has really made things more accessible. I mean, what we're doing right now would not have happened 10 years ago.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I even would say that, like, for the black magicians, the secrecy held up like longer. Like we really were underground. But at the same time, I would say I miss the underground spirit, because I do think that we are by nature an antagonistic current, antinomian, adversarial. Like we are not here to please, the men, the Babylon, the society. So with the advent of social media, later came social media censorship. Um, you know, a new wave of attacks on freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So, like, it has a downside. Like everything is accessible, but at the same time, say you got haters and they will go over your account years back trying to report anything they can for anything they can, and it's got nothing to do with justice or with you doing something that is actually illegal. These policies are very arbitrary. You cannot dispute them, and it has a lot of power. over actual people's lives. So you're on Twitter, so you know there's like the whole exodus from Instagram. They're now on Twitter. Like, where are we gonna go once it becomes more strict there? Where are we gonna go?
Right. Right. Yeah, I experience that all the time, and like shadow banning, where you just don't show up for a while. I have suffered that. I've had people contact me and say, "Was your account disabled? I can't find you on social media." Well, I've been on there since 2011. And so, something is going on with the algorithm, or, who knows what it is. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You have no say in it. You have to only do what they say, and if they don't like what you say, they just suspend your account. And it's really sad.
And then you're as good as dead, because if you're not on social media, then people will just forget you, and they will forget you crazy fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People really don't realize how hard content creators work. And, they make it look easy, but it is very, very hard to make content, get that content out there, continuously come up with ideas, have,
It's a real job. It's an actual hustle, and a lot of people realize that when they reach a certain level of success, that they just like either have to get a base to support them, or support it from like other streams, because then it kind of takes over their lives and it becomes a full-time almost endeavor. So a lot of people who blew up on YouTube have realized this. A lot of people give up on their channels once they reach a few thousand subscribers. So you either have to like professionalize yourself and roll with the punches and develop thick skin, or you're out of the game, and a lot of people want to be famous, it's just this allure, but the dark side that comes with it, not
yeah,
many are willing and able to deal with it.
true, true. I mean, I know you and me as well. On a daily basis, I have people sending messages to me that are hateful, wanting me to die, or
Why?
wanting
Whoa,
me to go
why?
away because I'm going to hell. And
Oh God. So
yeah.
so you're dealing with a lot of the religious
Oh yeah.
harassment.
Oh yeah. I've got the religious on one side, and then I'll have atheists on the other,
Oh, that
who are,
sucks.
yeah, who are like, "You believe in the devil? Well, there is no God, there is no devil, blah 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 blah." So it's like you get it from both sides, and it's like, first of all, I didn't ask you. you know
Sure.
Second of all, what I believe is my personal
Yeah,
business. So,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And it's protected by your constitutional rights. So
indeed,
I
indeed.
don't deal with religious harassment, sort of strangely, because a lot of other people do. I I deal with like unending stream of unwanted male attention because of the
Ah,
nature of my erotic contents, but I wouldn't even say that there's like bad attention. It's just there's too much of it, and you need to find out like how do you deal with it.
right,
It's a certain genre that just comes, with a certain pressures, and also not many are able to withstand that. I deal with like the general, what we call witch war drama. So, that mostly stems from jealousy, envy, or like past alliances, former friends,
right,
exes, and that, because it's a small community, it's a small town, and small town has its own drama always, because everybody has dated everyone. And a lot of people I've noticed especially in recent years with the advent of the lockdowns, it really became apparent that a lot of people don't have a life other than online.
True.
So
Very
all
true.
they do all day long is like stalk others, spy on them, harass them, form their cliques. It's like a demented Game of Thrones.
That's a good description.
It is. I mean, like you
Yeah.
must have seen it.
Yeah, I have. I've
And
been
I and
part
I,
of it.
I kind
Yeah.
of even believe that this type of behavior might be stemming from recreating past life memories. Like these people maybe were actually powerful people in the past. And now this metaphorical empire, becomes their social media following, and the other influencers, maybe they were the other warlords. So like they have these wars, they publish blacklists and they publicly curse people. uh they call for support, a call to arms. Sometimes even when you listen to their language, it kind of strikes you as there is something else coming through their words, something that stems from the subconscious. So I do believe that we replay a lot of things from our own past subconsciously, and social media just kind of makes it apparent, because I just don't think that this battle over influence, I think that's just a reminiscence of maybe actual battles in the past. But right now, what we see as power is maybe that's the clout, It's like we don't war over cattle and land and money anymore. It's the follower count.
That's an interesting hypothesis. It really is. I've never really thought about it like that, but that's interesting.
I have changed my opinion on many things in the recent past few years, because I acquired this ability to read past lives. I did a lot of regression for myself, for people, for clients, and it just totally changed my view of like who we are, what we actually do, and why do we do it. I see it kind of everywhere now, to the point that it's almost sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned erotica. Um, your website, animanoira.com, has some wonderful photography and you're a lovely model. How did you get into that?
I actually got into it sort of as a side effect of getting famous as a witch back in my homeland. When I was about 25 years old, I like hit the magazine covers and late night TV and this level of fame, where I was like really sought out by the media a lot locally. So they all wanted pictures, professional pictures. So some of them took them, but most media don't have photographers anymore, because they can't afford it. So they will just ask you as the person being interviewed to provide something. So I'm like, okay, I need some pictures. And that's how it started. I didn't think of it much, but I ended up dating and living with a famous fine art photographer for 3 years a bit later on, and that really sucked me into it, and it totally changed my view like on human form, body, modesty, everything, because he was so good and he was so obsessed with me, and he kind of documented his obsession with me and our own sex life. And these pictures were never published until recently, because they're pretty graphic, and now it's on my OnlyFans and it's on my website. I make collections out of it following a theme, or sometimes it's a single photo shoot that kind of shows a story. Some of these stories are based off my like past life memories. So, but this is a very recent move. This is like 2-3 months ago, where I came to Vegas, and I've been kind of down on my luck because of my divorce and ending up alone in a foreign country. So pushed by circumstances and this whole vibe of Las Vegas. The photographers were the people that I linked up with here, and they all told me, like, do you have OnlyFans? Everybody does OnlyFans. I was like, really? And they said, yeah, like, you've been doing these pictures for years. What are those pictures doing for you? And I'm like, okay. And I've been in turmoil for maybe a week or two. I'm like, oh no, this is gonna destroy my career. My reputation will go down the drain, or there will be no way back. And then I'm like, what career? You mean the one where you talk about demons and human sacrifice and Lucifer on YouTube? You think those people will judge you? And then I realized, okay, well, 80% of my audience is male, so they're kind of less likely to judge me for showing titties. And I was not wrong. It's actually always the women who will kind of try to silence you. Men are just like happy, they're just happy. Sometimes they are too excited,
Yeah.
or like they get it the wrong way. But yeah, I sadly I've been like even judged by satanic women and witches, telling me like what a proper witch or a proper satanist does, and that to me was kind of ludicrous.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that kind of goes against the whole left-hand path. We don't put boundaries on what we do. That's kind of the freedom of the left-hand path.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think eroticism goes with the left hand path, and Satanism and the dark occult. It makes more sense than like with any other spiritual current, except perhaps like the tantrikas, and those people. Of course, they are like all about sacred sexuality, but to me this allowed me to merge myself into just like one person under one name and one identity, and that's kind of rare. Like, most people will assume other pseudonyms, um but I don't do actual sex work, like I shoot erotica, so I stand by what I shoot. If that gets leaked all over the internet one day, I want people to say, oh my god, like that's a great picture.
yeah, and they are. You recently posted some that you had done in the desert that were stunning. They were beautiful. I wanted to ask you, how long does it take to do a photo shoot like that? I've always wanted to ask that question.
Well, it's pretty demanding, those kinds of pictures, they don't just produce themselves without effort. You need like props, costumes, makeup, transportation. The photographer puts in a lot of work, so it's usually a half day or even full day to arrange the whole thing. Definitely a full day if you count post-production. Some photographers do a lot of post-production, so then they spend hours on the pictures until it looks exactly the way they want to. But it's definitely, it's not like taking a selfie.
Yeah. No, they look wonderful. You can really tell a lot of work went into them. They're stunning. So, do you do readings as well? Is that part
I
of what you
do.
do?
I do. It's on my um see, I don't have the pages up there, and I should, but it's mostly on my Facebook page, Inner Ignition. I
Okay.
do past life readings, I do rituals for hire, I do some like traditional folkloric fortune telling that I
Okay.
brought from Eastern Europe, and of course I do spiritual mentoring, teaching for people who do my live streams and who want some individual attention. So I've been teaching the occult for many years. That was my main source of income. I was organizing workshops.
Okay. Um, I'm going to put the links down in the description so people can visit that. You had also mentioned that you've done some psychic work in the past, maybe regression work or Is that what you mentioned earlier?
I do that all the time, you know. I've done it in
Okay.
groups. I've done it individually, you know, with friends, associate. I do it for myself. It's kind of pioneering, like it's not really well known or well established.
Right.
I don't even know like a whole lot of other people who would be offering past life readings, as in they can tap into people's past and read it for them. So I've been reading the tarot. Later on, I moved to more like folkloric, traditional methods. So I read playing cards, and like the Russian gypsy oracles. That's my favorite go-to method. I read like ancestral Slavic methods and then like American folkloric fortune telling. I also read people's past lives. Um, I can do a regression for them if they like want to tap into it themselves. I can guide them through it. I do rituals for hire, and I just do all kinds of magical occult advice, guidance, mentoring, teaching. Pretty much that's what my YouTube channel is all about. And then people come to me individually.
And your channel is terrific. You've got a
Thank
lot of
you.
really great videos on there and a lot of great guests as well. I really enjoyed subscribe to your channel, and I'm going back through the older
Oh,
copies of them and working my way back forward, and it's
amazing. Well,
really
I
really
am
good.
always so glad to hear that people discovered it and went on a binge watch, because
Yeah,
that just tells me that I'm doing a good job, and I put a lot into it.
it's really well done, and I'll put the description to that as well down in the links so people can get to that. And also, I wanted to ask, as far as the psychic and the regression and things like that, how did you find out you had that gift?
I was actually taught by my father, who was an astrologer. So by the age of 11, 13, I had the tarot cards and I knew the basics of astrology. He taught me this stuff. As an astrologer, he saw in my natal chart that I would have an interest and a talent for the dark arts. So he decided to raise me that way, sort of against my mother's will, but he always defended it against her. So that's how I found out, and I did not really appreciate it until I guess much later in my life, when you realize like how much you were influenced by, you know, your parents. Because as a kid, you don't really appreciate what your parents are like trying to teach you. I wish I had read all the encyclopedias that he had given me back then, that I had actually read them thoroughly, but they were just beautiful and very thick, and I did not really read them. Like I looked up something every once in a while.
Right,
Now
right.
I wish that I had read them.
Yeah, yeah. I think back to when I was young, and some of the people that I knew that had certain talents. I wish I could go back and talk to them now, but they've passed on,
And
and
you know what? Just do visit those people if they are 50 years old or older. Just like do it, because you may not get the chance later on. I had a fantastic mentor in Prague who passed uh prematurely and tragically, like in the middle of everything. He was to attend the premiere of his theater play and he didn't show up in the evening.
oh,
So like I'm really glad that I had given it as much attention and as much time as I could when he was with us, because his own occult reckless experimentation, I think, sucked him out of this existence before the time. He really seemed to age super fast, and he was doing some crazy Enochian magic. He lived at a place that was very infamous for people dying there, for people going insane, for crime. So he went all the way and he paid the ultimate price for it. And that's not uncommon for black magicians.
do you do rituals and things like that in your practice?
Of course I do. I
Sure.
do different kinds of spells and rituals, like for personal gain, for betterment of personal um conditions, and I do the same stuff for clients. And I used to have a coven back in Prague, so there we would do like Sabbaths, just to honor the gods and for the community seasonally. Now I do all of that alone. So the sun cycle, the moon cycle, my Sabbath is like a virtual Sabbath nowadays. So like I always post something for the new moon, for the full moon. I always hold a live stream when there is like a greater witches Sabbath. I spoke about Lunasa, the sacrifice of the king, and that's how I keep my faith. That's how I keep my oaths, because I kind of believe that I'm bound to honor the witch's wheel for this life because of the initiations that I took in Wicca and Druidry when I was young. I just cannot stand not living by the moon and the sun. It just always sucks me in, like, it's my nature. I kind of tried to abandon it for a while, and then I always felt like something is missing in my life, because the civil calendar, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, who cares that some person died or somebody went into war, or it's mostly some tragic, horrible events anyway that we acknowledge in our civil calendar. So that just makes no sense to me. A lot of it is like state holidays, and I also like I'm not a big worshiper of the state. So I think that our pagan calendar, which Satanists also honor almost the same one. I think that's the only one that makes sense. It's objective. It's the movements of the stars and the planet and the cycles. And we may not be an agricultural society anymore, but we still have seasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you want to be doing in 5 years?
I'm not sure I'm gonna be here in 5 years' time. My current I don't even know what's gonna happen a month from now. Like, my life is under such intense turmoil and so much on the edge that I'm just kind of contemplating death and mortality and the liminal stuff. That's where I am right now in life. I live in a small room in a cheap hotel in Las Vegas. Um, I don't have a visa. I don't have a work permit. I don't have health insurance. I don't have any savings. I don't have any family. I'm an outlaw. I'm an outcast. So my immediate ambition, I guess, would be survival, but then without meaning. I don't care about survival. So I guess I care about my infernal union with Lucifer and fulfilling that, and the fulfillment of our pacts, which have been like long overdue and should come to fruition. That's the only thing that I care about.
What would you say to someone that is looking for themselves on the left-hand path? What would you say? What advice would you give them? They're looking for different belief systems and
Oh, they're shopping for religion.
they're shopping.
That's
Yeah.
what we all do in the beginning. Well, it will not hold you for long if it's not your path. Like, you will either be magnetized to it and you will recognize the genre as yours, or it will just spit you out. I do see some people trying to get into it kind of fashionably, but they move on fast, they don't last long. And then I see people who definitely belong there, but like they can't take it, they just experience such difficulty that they lose the faith, or they become jilted by the politics of the Black Lodge, the other practitioners. And that's, I mean, I can understand that too. I don't think it's much of a choice. I believe that people who are drawn to the left-hand path are basically bound by pacts and covenants and soul contracts they have made in previous lives, or sometimes they were born into like an ancestral current that is calling them. I have not met a single person who is a left-hand pather who wouldn't acknowledge that they feel like they've done this before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like that sometimes. I really do. I have a lot of deja vu that it just, I feel like I have been in this moment. The circumstances were maybe different, but I feel that it's really weird. And I have always wanted, everyone is blessed with different satanic gifts. And I always wanted the gift of being a psychic, and I just don't have it. I never have had
Well,
it.
we all have different gifts, and like my third husband, Ian, was a fantastic medium. He would literally lie down, the spirits would enter him, take on full dramatic form, and just start talking. And he would be talking female voices, male voices, infernal, angelic, like a full Hollywood actor performance. I know that I will never be able to pull this off because he was a prophetess many times before. When I try to do it, it sort of works, but it will never be this good. So I do something else. I do automatic writing. Some people will use pendulum, Ouija board, or cards, or they have dreams. Some people have very prophetic dreams. Some people don't have any of these gifts, but they just kind of learn how to observe the signs, or they just get the information through professionals or through associates, or from their priests. So there's many ways how to communicate with the spirit realm. And I just don't think that like envy makes any sense. And also, like, would you want to live with that gift? That's the thing. Because my husband was seeing the future all the freaking time, especially like worldwide events, scenarios of that nature, mostly of catastrophic nature. And it was driving him crazy. I'm like, you know what? Like, I see the past, and it's kind of disturbing what people did in past lives, but thanks Satan, because the future sucks ass.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that makes me feel better. I never thought of it like that.
You didn't, because the grass seems just so much greener. I don't, and then you just have it, the ability, and it's not pleasant. Like, I freaking run into people who have murdered me and tortured me or raped me in past lives, and I see it when I run into them. I experience, get like physical reactions.
Wow.
And that's like my regular life. Like, I don't go into trance or into a session. It's just it comes to me sometimes very randomly, and it's for the most part it's always the traumatic events that like want to resurface.
A blessing and a curse, all in the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to add before we close? Anything you want to let people know about?
Oh my. Oh my. Well, my name, Anima Noira, means the breath of darkness or dark life force, making darkness come alive, animating darkness. So I believe that is like basically my life's mission. That's what I do with everything that I do.
Well, you do really great work, and I thank you very much for being with me tonight. I'm going to again put all the links down in the description. I encourage everyone to go and visit her website. Um, Beautiful art, just lovely art, and a lot of wisdom and information there. So I encourage everyone to do that. So
Thank you
thank
for your
you.
kind words.
All right. And for everyone at home, this has been Aleister Nacht. Hail Satan.